But look around the league, and you can see that contending teams bribed their ways to more room for free agent and trade splashes. If the Penguins really wanted to dump some salary, the Coyotes probably would have listened. That doesn't really seem like how Ron Hextall generally rolls, though. Most of all, it just seems wise that the Penguins didn't box themselves into too many corners with some absolutely crucial contract year decisions looming. Let's start with the two biggest names, and maybe the toughest decisions. On July 22, Ron Hextall hinted that he might want to keep some of these contract year players around, but didn't tip his hand about possible extensions for Letang, Malkin, and others. Malkin, 35, enters the final year of a deal that carried a Penguins-friendly $9.5 million cap hit. Looking at his career, it sure feels like Crosby's 87 fixation affected Malkin's own contract negotiations. From 2009-10 to 2013-14, Malkin also carried that $8.7 million cap hit. Since 2014-15, Malkin's had that $9.5 million AAV. That's slightly more than Crosby's extremely team-friendly, and maybe NHLPA annoying, cap hit. But it's a pretty marginal difference. Logically, it feels like that might be the sort of contract Malkin would want, right? If anything, he's given the Penguins some nice deals during the peak years of his career. If Malkin took less, or even settled for a more modest term, then the Penguins would once again resonate as a profoundly lucky franchise. Speaking of luck, that's where a Malkin extension gets a bit scarier for the Penguins. In general, the Penguins face some what-if questions surrounding injuries, and those hypotheticals extend way back to Mario Lemieux dominating while undergoing chemotherapy. With Crosby, it's mostly been good luck. This was a player whose career was threatened by concussions, but he persevered. His gritty for a star player style still opened him up to some extra issues, yet Crosby's mostly been able to endure. Malkin's injury history has been checkered, too, and it's relevant for a player who will turn 36 before his next contract begins. Since 2009-10, Malkin's only flirted with fully healthy seasons twice, 75 games played in 2011-12, and 78 in 2017-18. Now, that doesn't mean Malkin can't get back on track. And there's a reasonable argument that people should take both the 2020-21 and 2019-20 seasons with a grain of salt. Still, the Penguins must weigh the value of Malkin and Letang, both actual and sentimental, against the risks of serious decline. Like Malkin and Crosby, Letang's been dogged by injuries. Letang and Malkin would both qualify as 35-plus contracts on their next deals, so if they demand term, the Penguins would face difficult choices. From a PR perspective, it feels like the Penguins have more latitude to move on from Letang than Malkin. Whether that's true or not, you could argue that Penguins fans might be more primed to accept that Letang might leave, either via a trade in this contract year, or free agency. Quietly, the Penguins have developed into a sneaky strong defensive team. Falling in the first round soured some of those impressions, but you might squint and picture a defense that could remain competent even if they had to make the difficult call to part ways with Letang. Throughout their run with Crosby, Letang, and Malkin, the Penguins made their blunders and found some steals. Amid those ups and downs, credit the Penguins for this, though, they haven't really boxed themselves into corners by overcommitting to players outside of their core. Naturally, that space can be deceptive, as Crosby and others only represent 11 roster spots covered. Here are some of the key contract years, extension questions the Penguins will be weighing. Well, there shouldn't be a shortage of motivation among Penguins thanks to those contract years. Naturally, Pittsburgh could consider extensions for some, beyond players who just signed, like Aston Reese. Frankly, I'd see if he'd extend at a team-friendly price once that's legal, though. Overall, the Penguins face a host of key contract year extension decisions. Malkin and Letang are the most monumental emotionally and financially, while Rust has been a true gem. These aren't easy calls, especially if the Penguins move on from one or more of Letang, Malkin, and Rust. In many cases, there are advantages to proactively signing contract extensions. Considering the age of Malkin and Letang, and the Penguins' unclear window to contend, playing out the season might be a smart gamble. Neither situation really resonates as a no-brainer decision. At least when you consider how dangerous it would be if the Penguins plummeted after letting Letang, Malkin, or even both walk. If they play their cards right, though, they might just squeeze out a bit more juice from what's been a remarkable era of success.